Hello, and welcome to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, the Outdoorsy Diva. Thanks for joining. Hello, adventurers. Welcome to episode 16 of the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Today, we are going to talk about vacations. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you all about what a vacation is, what the rules are for having a vacation, and how you can stay safe having a vacation. I'm also going to share with you the hilarious story of my personal experience with a vacation. So what exactly is a vacation? Well, a vacation is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's a vacation with a bay. If you're not up on lingo, bay can have multiple meanings. Some people use bay, when they're in like a committed relationship stance. Other people use bay to just be kind of a general term that could be any number of situationships, if you will. So for our purposes, just think of a vacation as a trip or a vacation somewhere with somebody that you may be romantically linked together. I think it's understood that it's a little bit more than platonic, but it doesn't necessarily imply exclusivity or a commitment. I first really even learned about this term a couple of years ago via Facebook. So there's actually a Facebook group for vacations, and they've actually grown exponentially since I was first added to it when it used to be a secret group, but now it's just a closed group, and I don't think the rules are not as stringent as they used to be when it first got started. But in any case, it's a group of singles, mainly Black singles, who come into the group, and basically you're looking for like-minded people, like-minded travel buddies. People will post, hey, I'm gonna be in Colombia or what have you, wherever they're gonna be, and they'll be like, does anybody want to join? Or they'll be like, yo, I'm in London from this date to this date. Is anybody gonna be that way? Or people will even say, hey, I'm planning this trip, want somebody to come with. And they'll even do like a sponsored type of thing. So like, I know every September is Take a Man Out on a Date month, and they'll say, all right, ladies, pitch a date, drop a pic. Fellas, if you're interested, hit them up in the inbox. So they facilitate those kinds of things. But I have to say, over time, now that the group has just grown so big, it's just become a lot of thirst pics. People just randomly posting their pics like, hey, look at me. Or, people start topics of discussion, which sometimes are good and sometimes they just go way left, especially anytime a man posts something and it starts with, you know how females be. Yeah, those always are pretty funny because the women just pounce on the guy. So I'm not as active in that group as I used to be, but every now and then I go poke my nose in there and see what I see. But I did have a vacation as a result of this group. So we'll get into how my personal vacation experience went a little bit later in the podcast. So what are the rules of a vacation? Well, there are none. There are no hard, fast rules other than obviously be respectful, and no means no, but I mean, those are rules in any circumstance, not just for a vacation. But specifically in this scenario, the rules are what you make them. The most important thing is that those expectations are set as you're planning your date or your trip with your bae. So you should definitely work out who's paying for what. Are you going completely Dutch? Is the other person inviting you, so you're expecting them to pay for certain things? You have to talk about those things. And then, of course, the biggie that always comes up is sleeping arrangements. So how is that going to work if somebody's inviting you somewhere? you're going on a trip with somebody that you don't know for the first time, obviously you will need to set boundaries ahead of time as far as what you expect for sleeping arrangements. Will you be in the same room, different rooms, same room, different beds, same bed? Work that out before your trip, but again, it's completely up to you and your bae and what you both feel comfortable with. You have to talk about activities. What are the expectations of what you're going to do on your trip or on your date? You want to make sure that you're both going to have an enjoyable time. So you want to definitely have like interest as far as what your activities will be. And if you want to have alone time, if you're a person who needs to reset and you still kind of like to build in a little bit of time where you can be by yourself, set the expectation right up front. The other biggie that always comes up is the elephant in the room, sex, of course. And that was a hot topic of discussion, especially when the group first started and people were trying to figure out, what this meant, what the boundaries were. The reality is, not everyone is looking for the same thing. Some people just want to hook up. Some people are looking for long-term relationships, and some people are trying to find their wife or their husband. So again, you have to have like expectations, and you have to talk about it and set those expectations. If all you're looking for is a hookup, booty call type of thing while y'all on the trip, you do your thing, then y'all establish that so that you're on the same page. Nobody's feelings are hurt, nobody's surprised, and nobody's put in an uncomfortable situation. So how can you keep yourself safe? Well, this is just another form really of online dating, and the same rules that you would take or precautions that you would take for online dating, you would most definitely take for this. So I think ways that you can stay safe are, obviously you need to get to know this person. Leave plenty of time prior to whatever your trip or your meetup is going to be. Share social media profiles. Like if they're not willing to add you as their friend, that is an immediate red flag. You need to be able to be their friend, see what they post, see what they say, see what kind of pictures they have. You want to make sure you're not being catfished. So do your due diligence. Get first, last names, your mama name, your sister's name, your brother's name. The person that you're planning to actually have a trip with should be willing to be forthcoming and open so that you have the information that you need to feel comfortable. And it goes both ways. I'm not just saying that women should interrogate the hell out of men and men just be like, whatever. Women just tend to be the ones to do the most vetting when we're in these types of situations. But I feel like men should be equally as diligent and vigilant about making sure that they know something about this person. You should exchange phone numbers. You should most definitely have phone conversations. Y'all, please don't plan a trip with somebody and all y'all have done is be in each other's DMs. Like, come on, that's crazy. You need to hear the other person's voice. You need to actually speak. You need to actually talk. You need to FaceTime. You need to see this person. And same rules of catfishing apply. Like if they always have an excuse why they can't get on FaceTime with you, that's a red flag. But you need to know the person you're going to meet. You need to feel comfortable that the person you're talking to is the person you're going to be on this trip with, because the worst thing that could happen to you is like you plan this amazing vacation to meet up with somebody in like, Puerto Rico, and the person that walks off the plane is like Norbert and you thought you were talking to Idris. That would be the pits. So be smart, do your due diligence. I'm a type of person that, I do background checks. I need first and last name and probably your license plate too, especially if we're talking about a trip somewhere, so that I can make sure that you're not crazy. Ask questions about their past, their history. Do they have a record? Anything you need to be concerned with? Y'all, there are crazy stories all the time about, men who have hurt, harmed, murdered women that, they met up with. And the woman really didn't know that much about them. And I'm not saying that doing all of this is going to prevent some psycho, but you do what you can. You plan for what you can. You let people know what you're doing, where you're going, who you're going with. When I had my vacation, I had my trusted few people who had the information for this person. They knew how to get in touch with him, with his family, with his mother, with his sister. I knew people who would know that I would be okay. Also, the trip that I planned was not somewhere we would be completely secluded. So it was a trip that I knew I actually had another friend couple going on this trip as well. So I was somewhat protected in that way because there would be other people on the trip that I knew and that could make sure that I was good and that this guy wasn't going to be like a lunatic. And also I knew I'd have other people to hang out with if I just needed a break or to get away from him because he got on my nerves, because I'm the first to admit that sometimes I don't like people. I can be a not very people-y person. I know that sounds really mean, but some people I just don't vibe with. And if it wasn't going to be a vibe with this guy, I definitely made sure I had a built-in fail-safe. Okay, so now that we've established what a vacation is, what the rules are for a vacation, and how you can be safe when you have a vacation, let's get into the story of that one time I had a vacation. I know that's why many of you are sticking around, because y'all are nosy and you want the tea, and that's fine because I'm here to spill it. I've sat on this story for a year intentionally. I kind of wanted to let it die down a little bit. I didn't want anyone to be personally implicated about what happened on my trip, but it is a story that I wanted to share nonetheless. So in the group, they had one of the posts where they had the women to suggest a date and post a picture and see if anybody wants to join them. Well, I had an upcoming press trip to go to Jamaica to Sandals. And on this trip, I was like, well, it's Sandals, so that's like a couples resort, right? Do I really want to take this trip by myself? Do I really want to take a homegirl to a couples resort? Or do I want to try to experience this resort the way that it's meant to be experienced, which is with a boo, with a bae? So I decided, what the hell, I would have the room covered, their meals will be covered, activities would be covered. The only thing that the bae would have to be responsible for is getting himself there. He'd have to get his own plane ticket. Obviously, he needs a passport. So what the hell? I shot my shot. I did have one interested guy, but he had a conflict due to his daughter graduating during the dates of the trip. And he actually tagged a homie and he was like, hey, I can't go, but this is a good dude. I'm vouching for him. He might be able to go. So I'm gonna tag him and then he'll reach out to you. And I'm like, all right, cool. So boom. So the guy reaches out to me and we go back and forth a little bit in the DMs, and I'm like, all right, bet, cool. Well, it's a tentative, yes, let's see. I obviously need to get to know you because I'm talking about going out of the country with you. I had plenty of time between, I think there was like 4 months prior to the trip. So we had plenty of time to get to know each other for me to feel comfortable with this person. So we exchanged numbers. We started to talk on the phone, kind of made it a regular conversation, just making sure to keep in touch with each other. Now, this guy was definitely not my typical type. He was much older than what I have normally dated. This guy was already in his early 50s. But hey, I'm no spring chicken. I was like, cool, whatever. I'm open to it. The pictures that he sent, his pics on Facebook, he was a decent looking guy and he didn't look his age. So, okay, cool. No biggie. I was a little concerned about the height thing because I'm a tall girl. I like tall guys. I prefer to be with guys taller than me. I couldn't gauge from his picture how tall he was, but again, completely superficial. I wasn't sweating it. If he wasn't taller than me, not a deal breaker at all. Was still willing to do the trip. We had cool conversations. He seemed like a cool guy. When we talked, we were on the same page. He was just looking to have a good time, meet somebody cool. He wasn't pressed for like trying to sleep with me or, anything like that. He was like, I'll be completely respectful. Everything was cool. So it seemed like, all right, we'll make this happen. So the plans were made. He went ahead and got his ticket. I submitted his name. So now I'm going to Jamaica with a bae. Alrighty. So fast forward to the actual trip. So I get there, get into the first resort we were staying at before he did. And he showed up. He let me know he was there. We communicated via phone. We get there and I open the door and y'all, yeah, he was short. And not only was he short, he had quite a bit of a belly, and it wasn't an initial physical attraction for me. Just being 100% honest, it wasn't a physical attraction. But again, it's Jamaica. Cool, that's fine. Not trying to make you my husband. I just want to have a good time. So we'll see what happens. So he gets there and I'm chilling. I had already kind of been out drinking by the pool by the time he got there with my other friend and her husband who were there. And he's like, oh, where's the restroom? It's a long ride from the airport to the resort. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So he goes to the restroom, whatever, comes out and it's cool. So we go downstairs, we go to the pool, we have drinks, grab something to eat, everything's cool. We come back to the room and I need to go to the restroom. And I noticed that the soap hadn't been used. Now, I hadn't used the restroom since we had been in the room because I had actually gone where there's a concierge area when we first arrived. I had not used the restroom in my suite. But this man went in there and used the restroom, and obviously you did not use soap to wash your hands. For some of you, maybe that's not a big deal, but the germaphobe in me was dying. I was like, oh no, you're one of those. Please don't be that guy. Like, I don't know what it is with dudes, but it's like, come on, man. Y'all actually have to touch your junk to pee. Wash your hands. Why is that so hard? I was like, okay, not gonna freak out. I'll just ignore it, whatever. Maybe he had hand sanitizer in his pocket. I don't know. Okay, so cool. Moving forward. So that first day, we actually had a lot of fun. We just hung out by the pool, went to one of the restaurants, got dinner. Everything was cool. I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be okay. This is going to be an okay trip. He handled himself really well. I had to kind of schmooze with our sponsors that night. He was there. And again, he was cool. He was supportive. He was friendly, personable, making friends with other people. And we get back to the room and, everything is cool. Like, I'm thinking, all right, this is going to be a fun weekend. So he changes into what he's going to sleep in or whatever. I'm chilling, like just laying in the bed or whatever on my phone. And he starts belching. And when I say belching, I mean, I thought there was a bullfrog in the room and it was like constant. Like every other minute this man was belching. And I'm looking up like, what in the French toast is happening right now? Like, do you have a problem? Do you have a health condition? Like, if you do, I feel like that's just something you should disclose, like full disclaimer. You know, when we were planning for this trip, I was full disclaimer. Hey, I snore. So just an FYI, I snore. If that bothers you, probably not going to be the right trip for you. But he never disclosed anything to me about the fact that he had like chronic gas. But what was weird is I had just spent like 4 hours earlier with this man all afternoon, and he was fine. He was a normal human being. I did not hear him expel gas from his mouth, not one time. And then we get in the room and suddenly this guy has turned into Al Bundy. I was flipping out. So the belching continued, and then he started the throat scratching. I can't even mimic the sound. I'm not a throat scratcher, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know people who do deep throat scratching. I hate that. That is like a super big pet peeve. No for me. Cannot stand the throat scratching sound. And he did it for at least 10 or 15 minutes. He's just scratching his throat, making this horrible gurgling sound in his throat. And then after he finished throat scratching, he started belching all over again. Oh my God. I was like, I might don't make it. I don't know what I'm going to do, y'all. And there is no nice way to say to somebody, hey, so the belching, like, is that a thing? Do you have a condition? What's up with that? How do you say that in a non-offensive way? I was literally freaking out. I didn't know what to do. So once he finally fell asleep, his bodily functions and noises did stop. And I was like, okay, that was odd. And I was still willing to put it behind me. You know, I still wanted to just have a good time. So the next day we actually moved to a different resort. And again, he was like total trooper, because I'm in work mode. I'm in blogger mode, which means I got to take a million pictures of everything, all directions, angles, horizontal, vertical, you know, this way, that way. And he was a complete trooper. You know, he carried my stuff for me when I had to set up the shots. He was willing to help me. You know, he was the perfect quote unquote Instagram boyfriend, if you will. So I was grateful for that, because not everybody can handle kind of the blogger lifestyle in the way that we have to travel, especially when we're producing sponsored content and the expectation is that you do certain things on the trip. You know, that part where you're working isn't always fun for the other person, but he was a trooper. Everything was fine during the day, but at night, once we're back in the room, out came the ogre again. And so the second night, it was more of the same, more of the belching, more of the throat scratching, more of the belching. And it was literally like about to drive me batshit crazy. There's no other way to say it. I was going nuts. For me, that's a deal breaker. The noises, the constant, I couldn't take it. And eventually, like, I slept with my headphones on just so I could drown out all of his bodily noises until he finally fell asleep, and then it stopped. So day 2 was complete, like, yeah, no, this is done. This is a wash. Like, I'm not feeling it. So the next day, I had already told him the type of traveler that I am. I finally had some free time. So I'm like, yo, we have a free glass bottom boat tour. You know, there's snorkeling. I want to do something out on the water. Like, I need to take advantage of this since it's free. And he was like, all right, bet. Cool. No problem. So we go on the glass bottom boat tour. Because I knew he wasn't feeling snorkeling at all. And that was fine. Well, as we came back, The guy saw how into all the fish and everything I was, and the skipper was like, well, this is the same boat that's gonna go out and snorkel, so do you want to go? And I was like, heck yeah. And my bae didn't want to go. That's not his thing. He was like, well, I'll be at breakfast, I'll just see you when you get back. All right, no big. I don't fault him for that, and it's fine for us to have kind of some time separated from each other. Well, after that, I did have some time where I had to go and attend a presentation, and I had let him know, hey, you'll have from this time to this time to kind of go do whatever you want. If you want to plan another excursion, you can do that for later. Just you have free time and I'll be tied up during this time. So he's like, all right, bet. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. I go and I have my session. I come back to find this man at 1 p.m. pissy drunk. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what did you do while I was at my presentation? And he was like, oh, I just stay here at the bar drinking. Really? And not like fruity drinks, of course. Like, he was throwing back like shots the whole time I was gone. Again, we're on vacation. Yes, it's an all-inclusive resort, but really, like, you had 4 free hours at a resort in Jamaica, and the best thing you found to do was get drunk and throw back 10 shots. So now he's like pissy, stumbling drunk by 1 o'clock. He's like, I'm gonna just go to the room and lay down. And I'm like, hell no. Like, I just got out of a session. Like, I'm trying to go do stuff and have fun. So I left him. I was like, well, you do you. Go back to the room. I'm gonna change and then I'm out. And so I did. So I left. I hung out with other people on the trip. And it was whatever. But by that time, I was just completely like turned off. And my attitude probably showed it. I don't have a very good poker face because I was just annoyed with him at that point. So again, didn't want the trip to be ruined by any stretch. So whatever, I got over it, met up with him later. We had our final dinner that they put on for us, and he came with me. And then after that, we went over to like this show or whatever to just to kick it with other people, other resort guests. And he saw me looking at like this wooden elephant, and I collect them, and I was like, oh, that's really, really pretty. But he was like, oh, are you gonna get it? And I was like, no, I'm not trying to take back anything. It's not that serious. So we kept it moving, whatever. Well, the next day, when it's time for us to go, he never said like, thank you. Not once. Like, dude, you came to Jamaica. All you paid for was a plane ticket. You stayed in an all-inclusive resort. All your meals, all these experiences, excursions, tours. You visited 3 properties in Montego Bay, and you never even said thank you or offered to like show gratitude. You're there because of me, like, and my work. Like, you didn't offer to like have a bottle sent to the room, something that wouldn't even cost you any money because the resort would have done that for free, or had them like put flowers in the room as a thank you or anything. I just felt like the fact that he went the entire trip and then even at the end showed zero gratitude, I felt some type of way about it. So we said our goodbyes, went our separate ways. We rode to the airport together and then, went about our business. Well, the way the airport is made, ended up running into him again, in the duty free store, right? So I'm in duty free. I have a couple of bottles that I'm getting to take back. He sees me, he comes over, oh, hey, whatever. I didn't realize we were in the same terminal. All right, bet, cool. So he's walking around with me. We get up to the counter. Do y'all think this man even offered to like buy one of my bottles of liquor just as a thank you? No, not at all. Okay, cool, whatever, no big. So I got my stuff and I'm like, all right, have a safe trip. And I was like done after that. But I did feel some kind of way. And I did feel like he was ungrateful. And I really, it just was not a love match at all. So after the trip, he checked in or whatever and was like, oh, it was cool, had a good time, thanks. And I'm like, okay. And I let him know, I was just like, I have to be honest with you. I kind of thought that you would show some type of gratitude and you didn't. And I guess that's just not your style. But if I seemed like I was a little bit miffed with you, like, that's why. And then, of course, 4 days later, he hits me with the, oh, you jumped to conclusions. Remember that elephant that you saw and that bottle of wine that you liked that we had for dinner? I got those for you, and I was going to ask you what your address was and mail them to you. What? Why? That's dumb. You could have say, if you bought them there at the resort, why wouldn't you just give it to me before we left? Yeah, I call bullshit and I don't believe it. I don't think for 1 second he had any intentions on sending me anything. Y'all might think I'm wrong. You might think differently, but I didn't believe him. It just didn't seem sincere. And I think he didn't expect me to call him on his stuff. So that was Lauren's vacation experience. It wasn't terrible, but honestly, the bodily function thing, that took the cake more than anything. And I did not speak to him after. We have not had any further communication. That's when you just stick a nail in the coffin with that one and let that go. It happened, but not a match made in heaven for me. So would I do it again? I would consider it. I would 100% consider doing it again. And I think, I'd vet them the same way. People are who they are. And if it's a match, it's a match. And if it's not, it's not. So I'm glad that I did it. It definitely took me out of my comfort zone to even be the one to put out something like that. I'm not a person who approaches guys on a regular basis. So to put myself out there, to kind of shoot my shot, take a chance, do something different in this dating realm. I was proud of myself for doing that. And I'm open to doing it again. So what do you think? Is a vacation something you would consider? Is it for you? Send me an email to podcast@outdoorsydiva.com. I would love to know what you think, if you've done a vacation or something similar, or if it's something that you would actually consider doing. And before you go, I have a bit of a PSA announcement for you today. As you know, Hurricane Dorian ripped through the northern islands of the Bahamas and wreaked a lot of havoc on a couple of those islands there. There was quite a bit of devastation to the Grand Bahamas and to Abaco. I'm just asking you to keep those people in your thoughts and your prayers, but more importantly, open your wallets because there's the need for help and relief. You can check out www.bahamas.com/relief to see what the official word is from the country on what they need and the best way for you to get relief items or to make donations to them. Also, I would encourage you, if you did have travel plans to the Bahamas, like Nassau wasn't affected, the Exumas wasn't affected. Those they intend to be business as usual here very soon. So don't just assume that the Bahamas are completely devastated and you need to cancel your trip just because of what you see on the media. What you see on the media is just a small portion, but the Bahamas is actually quite a large island chain. So check with the resort that you plan to stay with, the tours that you plan to do, and let them advise you on whether or not your trip can still take place. But don't just assume that it's canceled. And I say this not to be disrespectful for the lives and the property loss, but tourism is their number one way that they are able to make money. This is how families are sustained. This is how people make money there. They are a tourism driven country. And so they need our dollars. They need our tourism. And if you had plans to go, they still need you to come and spend money and show up. So don't just assume that your trip is over. Check with your plans, and hopefully you will still be able to go and patronize them. And if you can, open up your wallets, open up your heart, and send a little something to our friends in the Bahamas. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Be sure to check out Misadventures of an Outdoorsy Diva blog on OutdoorsyDiva.com. You can also keep up with me and my adventures, so check out all of my social channels. Find Outdoorsy Diva on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.